Starting with introductions. I am Sanjana Malgredi, and I'll be interviewing Dr. Kollu in this podcast episode. Dr. Kollu, would you like to share?
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Sanjana, for having me back again. I am Dr. Vidya Kollu. I'm a double board certified hematologist and oncologist, and the founder of Arogya Vidya, a consulting service committed to helping individuals from India navigate cancer and blood disorders with clarity and compassion. I work as a locum hematologist and oncologist in the US. And I'm also a mom to a soon to be 6-year-old son. I'm an international medical graduate, a mentor, a community builder, and most importantly, a lifelong learner, building a life and practice that aligns with both my mission and my values.
So, Dr. Kollu, thanks so much for sharing. It was nice to hear all that information about you before we get started in the podcast. So, this is the second episode of the three podcast episodes with Dr. Kollu. In the first episode, we talked about Dr. Kollu's journey to become a hematologist and oncologist, as well as what she does and her day in the life. In the second episode, we will talk about the challenges faced and lessons learned, as well as Arogya Vidya, which is a consulting platform. So, to begin with, we will talk about challenges and lessons learned. So, medicine can be both incredibly rewarding and incredibly demanding. This seems especially true in oncology, so let's talk about some of the challenges that come with the field and the lessons those experiences have taught you. So, our first question is, what are some of the biggest challenges you face either during your training or in your practice today?
So I would say one of the biggest challenges I faced during training, especially prior to fellowship, being in residency, was the silent struggle of being an international medical graduate. There were moments early in my journey where I felt invisible in a system that wasn't designed with people like me in mind. I was so constantly trying to prove that I belonged, not just to others, but to myself. And then when you are in, another challenge arises, like in oncology, especially, like about how do you carry the weight of your patients' realities without breaking down yourself. That's the biggest challenge in oncology. And apart from that, like irrespective of the specialty, the universe's challenges of like administrative burden and burnout comes into play. And coming to a particular challenge. Mm, I remember, especially as it relates to oncology, like how do we carry the weight of our patients, right, without breaking down, as a person ourselves, considering that, we have to process those emotions, but still be able to help the patients. So, one of the patients from my Hemonc fellowship, she was a young woman, like maybe a decade older than me, with two kids. She had metastatic colorectal cancer. And we had a good relationship through her treatment journey in my fellowship. And I was fortunate to be trained in a program where we used to own our patients. And we had long conversations, not just about chemo, but also about meaning of life, about parenthood, and about unfinished dream, as she was in her like mid 40s. And when she passed, eventually, like after multiple lines of treatment, it hit me deeply. I remember sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot and just crying like quietly. And I didn't want to look weak, though we had sessions where we, debrief, like, when your patients die and all that. And there were conferences to support that. And that, like, eventually helped me realize that being human isn't a weakness and it's our strength. So, what I would like to emphasize here is like with oncology, you're trained how to, deal with the difficult emotions that come as part of your specialty in a better way, and you'll be well equipped with the training you get. So,
I'm sure many healthcare professionals or people in general have faced similar experiences to what you face, and it's nice for them to know that they are not alone. Like one difficult emotion people may face as becoming a healthcare professional is burnout. So, have you ever experienced burnout or felt overwhelmed by the emotional side of oncology? And how did you cope with it?
absolutely. Oncology is a field where you walk with people through some of their most painful, uncertain moments, right? And if you don't develop ways to process that, it pretty much seeps into your soul, especially being the empathetic, people that are there, that want to take up this kind of specialty. And burnout doesn't always show up as exhaustion or like, the typical the things that you read in books. Sometimes it could be just the numbness or the feeling that nothing moves you anymore. That could also be a sign of burnout. And that's when I knew how to make a shift. And also in addition to just the emotional aspect of taking care of people who are dealing with difficult times in their life, there are also other parts of the healthcare system that is, that makes it even harder, especially like not having the autonomy of having control of your schedule and, all that, especially being a young early career physicians and having a family to take care of and having much more responsibilities outside of work and balancing all that can also add to that. And I would say my coping strategies have changed over time. In the beginning, like to prevent burnout, I used to journal. I practice yoga and meditation to even not let the burnout hit, right? And I also try to speak openly with my family, like, and also like nowadays, like I feel like my 6 year old, I'm also trying to help him process his emotions. So I speak with him about emotions. So he sees that strength isn't about hiding how you feel, but how you feel the emotions and all that. And also, most importantly, over the period of time, I learned to choose environments that nourish me, not just pay me. And that's why I embraced locum work, and it gave me the flexibility to recharge and also to control my schedule, which kind of helps mitigate a lot of the administrative burden of like resulting in any burnout. And also this let me be present more for my son and to reclaim things time for the things that mattered most, so I could go into these conversations being fully recharged and refilled than going in feeling empty, so I could better serve my patients and be the physician I always aspired to be.
It was really nice to hear how you were affected by burnout, but you chose to rise above it and then, treat it with your own strategies like meditation, yoga, and journaling, and how you benefited because of those strategies. Burnout is a universal experience, something that many people go through, and knowing they're not alone while also hearing simple strategies to cope can be really comforting and motivating. So thank you for sharing your experiences. Our next question is, what are some lessons you've learned that you think every future doctor or really any healthcare provider should know?
I would say I've learned so many, but if I had to distill them to a few points, I would clarify to everyone that you're not your title. We often tie our identity to our white coat or to our degrees, like, okay, I'm a doctor, right? But who are you beyond that? That's an important question one needs to seek an answer to. And it comes down to your integrity, your empathy, your voice. That's what will sustain you, not just the title, especially when the going gets tough and especially when you need to have that strong why. It has to be beyond your title. And also the other thing I would say is to listen more than you speak. Medicine isn't just about treatment, it's about understanding. So sometimes your stethoscope or your prescriptions will never replace one's ability to listen with your heart, because once you can make the patients and families feel understood, that's what would work like a great medicine, like, for them to develop the trust and in the process, in the medicine and everything else that follows. So, and the other thing I would say is not to wait to arrive before you start giving back. I thought I had to become an attending to be a mentor, especially early on in my career, right? But even as a medical student, you have something to offer. And even before medical students, like, being like a pre-medical student, like, and the way I am so impressed by the younger generation who are like, trying to do things before, they have become something. And in the process, they're not just helping themselves, but they're helping others come along with them in the process. So even as a international medical graduates and residents now, because I know how much just one kind voice can shift someone's trajectory, which I wish I had at that time. And one thing that comes on in the way trying to do this is your own imposter syndrome, where you will be questioning, who am I to, go and help anybody? But it's sometimes like your unique voice needs to be heard by even, that one person that, strikes chord with, what you have to say. So, and don't think that you are not equipped with, helping somebody else before even you have arrived. So that's important for people to hear your voice in your own with your own unique story and perspective. And finally, I would say burnout doesn't mean you're broken. Sometimes it just means you've been strong for too long without rest. And there is no shame in identifying the time to say that you need to rest or take a break, as much as it's kind of like overworking is overrated to a point of like people even die at work and they consider it as a medal of honor, which is unfortunately not how it's supposed to be. So you're allowed to pause and give yourself that permission to pause and rest when you need it, and you're allowed to pivot, and you yourself get to give you the permission to do that, and you don't need to wait for any permissions from outside as long as you know that this is what you need. So,
Thank you so much for sharing your advice and encouraging people to be leaders, encouraging people to be proactive without needing a title to do so. So our last question for this section was there ever a moment when you doubted your path? And if so, how did you get through it?
oh yes, after not matching the first time I applied for a fellowship, I started questioning everything. And especially the fact that like I have like tried being academically good to a point of matching, like, during the first residency application in the first program of my choice. This was like an eye opener. And I had invested so much time, money, energy, and I was also being proactive to make everything happen. Yet I wasn't enough in the system's eyes, right? But in hindsight, that detour was the best thing that happened to me. I used that time to work as a subspecialty hospitalist in bone marrow transplant to get involved in patient care and research and to refine my clinical judgment and communication skills. More than that, I got to slow down and reflect with the time that I got working as a subspecialty hospitalist. Sometimes your no is just a not yet. I didn't match that year, but the next year, after like taking enough time to build my CV, I matched with the right program and with the right mentors and in the right setting, and which was in alignment with my future goals of working as a community hematology oncologist. And I always tell any international medical graduates applying now, the path isn't straight, but it's still yours, and you have to trust the process. So,
Again, thank you for giving your insight. I'm sure like many people may go through the experience you went through, and hearing how you processed it and handled it was like an eye opener, you know? So that was it for this section. In the next section, we will be talking about Arogya Vidya, which is a unique consulting platform that you started. But before we dive into the questions, would you like to give a description of what Arogya Vidya is?
sure. So, Ayurveda literally means the knowledge of health. Like Arogya is health and Vidya is the knowledge. And it's a virtual consulting platform I've created to provide second opinions and educational support for people with cancer and blood disorders, especially those in India and and the South Asian diaspora who struggle with access, clarity, or communication. It's not a traditional telehealth practice. It's a space where patients and families can come to make sense of complicated diagnosis, treatment options, like making sense of their medical reports, and also other alternative treatment options, and making sure it's the standard of care, and also to make sense of side effects, and most importantly, to feel heard. Um, so that's what Arogya Vidya is about. So it's an online consulting or second opinion platform that I have created for folks in India dealing with blood and cancer.
Thank you so much for sharing. So So first question is that you started Arogya Vidya, which is a consulting platform for people with cancer blood conditions. So what inspired you to launch this?
So it was born out of a recurring story where friends, relatives, and sometimes even acquaintances would reach out to me on WhatsApp for guidance after receiving a diagnosis. And also, they would send me the reports to kind of make sense of what it says and what to expect with the treatment options. And I saw how lost they felt. So, one particular story that stands out to me was one of my dad's friend's daughter's brother-in-law, who was very young, like in his like 30s, was diagnosed with renal cell cancer, like which is a kidney cancer. Um, and but no one had explained to them about the prognosis and or that it was actually very treatable. And also, the family was all paralyzed with fear of what to expect, and he was also in acute pain from having some the cancer that has spread to the bones, and they were like kind of feeling directionless. So with 1 hour of education and reassurance, their entire outlook changed, and I realized that I didn't just want to treat disease being an oncologist or being a physician. I wanted to transform the experience of being a patient or, patient's caregiver. And especially in South Asian culture, there is often shame or stigma around cancer, and sometimes language or system barriers add to the confusion. And also, the kind of practice that happens back home in India, it's volume based. Like there is not much scope for patients' questions to be answered as well as much as they should be. And Arogya Vidya was my answer to bridge that gap where, I can bring in that education and clarity, answering patients and families' questions so they go into the journey well informed so that they can make well informed choices.
I love that because you're not just treating the illness, you're really changing the whole experience of being a patient. And I feel like that's really impactful for any patient you may encounter through your consulting platform. So, what was the biggest challenge in starting something like this outside of your clinical work?
So the biggest challenge again was giving myself the permission to start and trying to overcome that imposter syndrome again, right? Like, who am I? Like, there are so many other, oncologists who could be doing it. Like, why should I be, the one? And also giving myself that permission to start. As doctors, we are trained to operate within the healthcare system that we are in, right? Not build outside of it, because it's not taught in a medical school or anywhere how to start your own venture, or even not just venture, but even you're not even educated on basic finances. And I kept thinking, like I said, like with the imposter syndrome, who am I to start something, right? Until I reframed it to, who am I not to, especially when people need this and I'm an expert in this specialty trying to do the exact same thing within the healthcare system. Why not I provide this service to the people that need the most, and why not I create that, right? So the logistics, like setting up the website, the scheduling systems, the legal protections, branding, pricing, all of that was new. That was not definitely taught in medical school, but I surrounded myself with mentors and used what I learned from my other ventures, like with real estate investments, and like in investments in general, like being part of a community that where a lot of physicians were entrepreneurs building their things and cool stuff and much more cooler things than what I was doing. I learned from them, and I started small, and I had the right team that was helping me with things that I'm not good at, but I bring in the services that I'm good at, like, we're taking care of patients. And now, even with few consults, I know I'm making a difference that feels deeply aligned. And even if I could help few patients and families have their journeys cleared and have that sense of assurance after having the consultation, that's worth while pursuing this venture. And I was able to do that for a couple of patients already through this venture, and I hope to carry it forward to many more patients and families in the future?
It's really nice hearing your experiences through starting Arogya Vidya. And I really appreciate how you were honest about your challenges, like the logistics and like the imposter syndrome you faced and how you were able to overcome that. And it was also really nice to show that it's possible to accomplish the stuff that you accomplished when you surround yourself with the right people and just to take that first step. So that was it for the podcast for the second episode. So Dr. Kolu, thanks so much for being here with us for the second episode. I am sure many people have benefited from hearing about your insights, and we can't wait for the valuable information that you will provide in the third episode, where we will be talking about Empower IMG, a LinkedIn community you created for IMGs or international medical graduates, as well as your advice for students passionate about pursuing a career in the medical field. Thanks so much for being here with us today. And is there anything else you would like to share?
Thank you again, Sanjana, for this thoughtful conversation and for inviting me to share this space. To anyone listening, whether you're a student, international medical graduate, parent, or someone going through a challenging season, your story matters. Your detours, your doubts, your dreams, they're all part of your medicine. And remember, it's not just about what kind of doctor you become, but what kind of human you remain in the process. I'm looking forward to the next episode. And thanks again. And I'll leave you with this. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is show up for others as the person you once needed. Thank you.
Thank you.